There was once an empire in West Africa so vast, so wealthy, so intellectually alive, that its capital city made medieval Europe look like a collection of villages. Its scholars wrote books by the hundreds of thousands. Its armies controlled a territory larger than Western Europe. Its emperor was so rich that when he traveled, the price of gold collapsed in every market he passed through. You were never taught about it in school. And that is exactly the point. This is the story of the largest empire in African history. A civilization that mastered trade, scholarship, and military power simultaneously, at a time when most of the world hadn't figured out how to do any of them well. And it is the story of how, in a single afternoon in 1591, it ceased to exist. March 13, 1591. The Battle of Tondibi. The Moroccan Sultan, Ahmad al-Mansur, had sent an army of 4,000 men across the Sahara Desert. 4,000. Against an empire of millions. Against a cavalry force of tens of thousands of Songhai warriors, the finest horsemen in West Africa. On paper, this was not a battle. It was a suicide mission. The Songhai Emperor, Askia Ishaq II, fielded an army that outnumbered the Moroccans perhaps 10-1. His cavalry were legendary. His territory stretched from the Atlantic coast to the borders of modern Nigeria. His empire had stood for over a century. He had every reason to be confident. He had never faced gunpowder. The Songhai cavalry, magnificent and fearless, had never encountered firearms in formation. The sound alone, the concussive thunder of 4,000 guns firing in waves, broke the horses before the bullets broke the men. In less than 2 hours, the greatest empire in African history was militarily shattered. The Moroccans lost 200 men. The Songhai lost everything. But here is the question that changes everything. How does a 10-1 advantage become a catastrophic defeat? How does an empire that controlled half a continent, that had survived invasions, civil wars, and a century of dynastic struggle, collapse in a single afternoon? To answer that, we have to go back. Not to the battle. To the beginning. Before we watch it burn, the uncomfortable part of this story. The Songhai Empire did not only collapse. It was erased. For the centuries that followed, as European colonial powers moved deeper into Africa, they brought with them a narrative that was more useful to their purposes than the truth. That Africa before colonialism had no history worth recording. No states worth studying. No civilizations worth inheriting. This was not an accident of limited knowledge. The manuscripts of Timbuktu, perhaps 300,000 of them, were known to exist. European explorers and scholars had documented them. They had reported a city of universities and libraries. And the world chose not to be interested. Because acknowledging the Songhai Empire meant acknowledging something that colonialism required to be untrue. That African civilization was not something Europeans brought to Africa. It was something that existed, magnificently, undeniably, before they arrived. And something that their actions helped to destroy. The Songhai Empire is not a footnote in the history of human civilization. It is one of its chapters. A chapter that was deliberately closed, hidden, and shelved. But chapters, it turns out, are harder to erase than empires. The manuscripts survived. The stories survived. And now, so does this one. We tell ourselves that history is about the past. But we study it because we are frightened of the future. The Songhai Empire fell because an external enemy had a technological advantage. But it fell so completely, so quickly, so finally. Because it had already spent decades destroying itself from within. Because the people entrusted with power chose personal survival over collective strength. Because the institutions that gave the empire meaning, its scholarship, its trade, its law, were treated as instruments of power rather than ends in themselves. Because ordinary people, exhausted by the incompetence and self-interest of their rulers, stopped caring whether the empire survived. These are not medieval problems. They are human problems. They appear in every civilization that has ever grown large enough to believe it cannot fall. The Songhai built something extraordinary. 25,000 students in a single city. 250,000 manuscripts. Trade networks that connected continents. A legal system. A civil service. A professional army. A world. And it was not enough to save them. Greatness is not armor. Civilization is not permanent. And the most dangerous moment for any empire, any nation, any society, is the moment it becomes more interested in who controls it than in what it was built to protect. Empires rarely die in one day. They decay quietly, in the choices no one thought would matter. Until one morning, the river is still there. And everything built beside it is gone.